So we will transition into our town council meeting for this evening, which is going to be a little different than normal. We're doing a workshop tonight on a single item. So if we can please call the roll.
Mayor Bright Cruz.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman.
Here.
Councilmember Albritton.
Present.
Councilmember Jablonski.
Here.
Councilmember Kaczynski.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. If you please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to give a little background. I think there's some things going around on Facebook or whatever which are misleading. And so I want to be able to give a little background on why we're here and why we're having this discussion, and then some ground rules for what we're going to be doing. So we are, this particular discussion, Councilmember Jablonski brought this up as an issue, which I really appreciate because it is something that is, continues to be an issue here in town, where folks have different thoughts on it. And generally speaking, we always have the philosophy of a live and let live situation. But in this particular case, there's a lot at stake, and so I felt that it was appropriate that we get together as a community and have a discussion on it. So a little bit more specifically, what we're talking about is, I know the agenda item says home-based businesses, which is accurate, but it is specifically what kicked off this discussion were a lot of businesses that are being operated out on 210 and 208, and a number of them are outside of what our regulations would allow, and historically, it's been one of those things where no one has complained about it for the most part. And so they have continued to do what they do because that's the way our code works. That's the way we like to operate, is if you're not hurting somebody else, if you're not disturbing their lifestyle, then we don't want to be, the code police out there. But at this particular juncture, there's a lot of money at stake. There's businesses at stake. There's livelihoods at stake. There's people. It's a very complex issue. There's still a lot of homes out there that have issues. There's situations where people are trying to sell their property. Could be a home, could be a business, and because it's such a wide variety of what's out there, let's say you have a home and you're trying to sell your home out there. Somebody comes out there to take a look at it. It looks good on paper. They come out there. They see all those businesses out there, and they're like, no, I don't really want to put myself in the middle of that, And so then that homeowner says, okay, I'm not getting, the proper response from selling my home. Maybe I need to look at selling it as a business. And so the business person comes out there and takes a look at it, and you're like, I checked your zoning, and this is illegal. You can't do this out here. So they're not interested either. So it's a situation where these folks are having a really difficult time getting value out of their home because of the current situation. And people have businesses out there. Like I said, a lot of money at stake. People have homes out there, a lot of money at stake. And so the historical pattern of where we've been, of just kind of a live and let live scenario, does not seem to be working as well there as it is in other places. But it goes beyond 208 and 210. There's other sections of town that we've had very similar situations in. A number of those are in Rolling Oaks. I know I did a huge presentation on one of them probably about 6 years ago. And so it is, it's an issue that is facing our town. And so we could either ignore it and pretend it's not there, or we can come together as a community and we can discuss it, and we can see what, if any, changes need to be made. And this is a discussion item. So what does that mean? That means a couple of things. One is the council's not taking a vote tonight. So if you're looking for a decision one way or the other, this is not the meeting where it's going to happen. This is us as a town getting together, talking respectfully for one another, and airing the different two sides so that everybody gets heard. That's what this is about. And that is the second point I want to make. We're all ranchers here. We're all neighbors. We all came here for the same reason, to live out this lifestyle that we all enjoy. And so we need to be respectful of one another. We're going to disagree today. I guarantee you that. We're going to disagree at certain times. But we're all ranchers. We all need to be respectful of one another, and let everyone speak and be heard. And the council is up here basically to listen. At the end of the night, some members may decide to make some comments. Some members may decide not to make comments. Like I said, there's no vote, there's no decision tonight. But this is critical because we want to hear from all sides. And so that's why we're here this evening. Question just from an administrative standpoint. Was there a presentation we were going to do regarding some of the code issues and things?
Yes, Mayor. Just a brief presentation. I wanted to have Julio come forward and just kind of speak on the issues that are present. We did present also some excerpts
Into the
of
mic.
I'm sorry. We did also present some excerpts of the code that pertain to home-based businesses, as well as some areas in town that are represented geographically where we've had some issues based with home-based businesses. So.
Great. So I just wanted to give that introduction. We'll get down now to a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of it. Julio, if you can come up and kind of talk to us a little bit about where it's happening, the history, and the code itself. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Essentially, you hit it right on the head, Mayor. While it is on the agenda as a home-based business discussion, it really is just more of illegal businesses that are operating outside of the code. So the town actually did adopt a code for home-based businesses, which is really mirrored after the Florida statute regarding home-based businesses. They are allowed, the town does allow them. However, there are certain regulations pertaining to home-based businesses. So I do want to cover some of those, so everyone in the audience, as well as every member of the council, is aware of what those regulations are. So again, home-based businesses are allowed in the town, but there are a few regulations, starting with only residents of the single-family dwelling and up to 2 additional people who do not reside at the dwelling may be engaged in the business at the dwelling. The business may have additional remote employees that do not work at the dwelling, provided they do not park or store their vehicles on the plot, nor in any public or private right-of-way. B, any parking or storing of commercial, construction, agricultural, or recreational vehicles, equipment, and machinery at the home-based business in all residential districts shall be subject to Section 045030C, parking and storage. So that means that you essentially have to abide by the long-standing town's code regarding parking and storage of vehicles. So essentially, commercial vehicles becomes the main issue here. The town does allow 1 commercial vehicle for properties that are 2 acres or less, and 2 commercial vehicles for properties that are larger than 2 acres. So any home-based business that wants to operate in the town has to abide by those regulations. C, the need for parking generated by the home-based business shall not be greater in volume than would normally be expected at a similar residence where no business is conducted. Vehicles and trailers used in connection with the business shall not be parked within any public or private right-of-way. D, no sign for the home-based business shall be visible from the exterior of the dwelling. E, as viewed from the street, the plot must appear to be consistent with that of the surrounding rural residential areas within the town and shall not have the appearance of a business as indicated by physical improvements, equipment, vehicle parking, activity, or other perceivable characteristics. F, the home-based business shall not conduct retail transactions at a structure on the plot other than the dwelling. However, incidental business uses and activities may be conducted on the plot containing the home-based business. G, the home-based business shall not create noise, vibration, heat, smoke, dust, glare, fumes, or noxious odors of an intensity, frequency, or duration that is not customary for a single-family residential property where no business is conducted. H, the home-based business shall not use, store, or dispose of any corrosive, combustible, or other hazardous or flammable materials or liquids of a type, quantity, or manner that are not customary for a single-family residential property where no business is conducted. And then lastly, a certificate of use from the town and business tax receipt from the county shall be obtained for any home-based business. So in essence, if you look at each of these conditions, essentially you are allowed to operate a home-based business, but that property should be indistinguishable from any other residential property. So now we do have the map that will depict the violations.
Before we get to the map, just want to touch one more thing with you, if you could speak to this just for a moment. So there's a number of businesses that are agricultural.
Correct.
That are and they have their ag, and they are nurseries, and they do the whole nine. But then we've seen in those situations a commercial aspect that then goes outside the ag. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So this actually does not apply to agricultural operations, which are allowed in the town. They are allowed, as a primary use. So any agricultural use, such as a nursery or equestrian business, is allowed. These restrictions do not apply.
Thank you.
There is, however, instances where a property starts off claiming to be a nursery or wants to portray themselves as a nursery. However, they provide additional services such as primarily landscape services. So landscape services has been already proven, through multiple cases the town has presented, is not an accessory use to a nursery. So landscaping services where they're going out to service other properties outside of the town or even within the town, it's not an allowable use. So that would be considered one of those illegal operations.
Can I just throw something out? Julio, a lot of people don't know what a nursery is. Could you give us the definition of what a true nursery is? Because there's a lot of ambiguity amongst the conversations I've had over the years.
Sure. So a nursery is an operation where there's a sale
We're getting some.
Yeah, the lights are flashing.
where there is the promotion and sales of plants, trees, and also anything that can be grown and cultivated on the property is allowed to be sold. For example, we have properties that have, aside from the typical items for a nursery, there are incidental items, which are also part of the code and part of items that are allowed. Mulch is one of those accessory uses, but it has to be an accessory use to a nursery. You can't just have mulch alone, the sale of mulch alone. It has to be primarily a nursery, meaning you have to have trees, plants that are grown on the property, and then, again, incidental items such as mulch, rock, pebble can also be sold from the nursery. But to answer that question, the items, so the plants and trees must be grown on the property. And that's what a nursery is. Again, landscaping, where you're going out to service a property, maintaining a property, that's not part of a nursery.
Thank you.
Yes, Council.
Thank you, Julio. Excuse me. My question is, what about livestock, goats, chickens, et cetera?
So again, that also falls within an agricultural use. So this does not regulate that. We do have a section of our code that pertains to how many animals can be kept on a property, but the town does allow keeping, breeding, and just a farm operation is allowed within the town. So any kind of animals, horses, chickens, goats, they're all allowed within just a normal operation for an agricultural use on the property.
Thank you.
I have one other question that kind of goes between David's and mine. So people hear about ag exemption. The proper term is an agricultural classification on the property. Can you run a landscape nursery and sell plants, or can you have a horse business without having an agricultural classification legally?
You can, again, because the town does allow agriculture as a primary use on the property. Even if you do not have a agricultural classification from the county, you may still have an agricultural operation.
Thank you.
Again, you just have added benefits.
Right.
Having the classification on your property.
Thank you.
And just furthermore, just to elaborate a little bit more, as far as vehicles, agricultural vehicles are also not limited by this.
Okay, awesome. Sorry to interrupt your presentation. Let's go to the,
It's good stuff.
yep.
So, again, the map, the first slide that we're going to show you, it's going to be a map of the entire town, and the areas highlighted in a kind of orange, reddish color is going to identify the properties where a violation has occurred. We're going to get some closer looks at this, but the areas where you see some red, those are the properties that have been cited throughout the town.
What's the duration of what we're seeing? Is this over the last year,
So
5 years,
this is
last week?
from 2019 to the current,
Okay, so it's 6 years.
yes. Now, just so you all can get a kind of a better look at this, I did divide it a bit more into some districts. So first, we can take a look at Vice Mayor Hartman's district here. You'll see this is from 210 to, what is this?
District 4.
We can just change the orientation.
I think that's,
Yeah.
These are just citations for business.
Yeah, so there we have from US 27 to Bonaventure. So as you can see, primarily you have 210, 208, and then what looks like possibly 185th as the main areas. Next, we'll move on to districts 2 and 3. So we are going to have Councilmember Jablonski and Albritton sharing this slide. So here you'll have from Rolling Oaks all the way to Dykes Road. Probably one of the least affected areas. You don't have too many throughout the town. So, and these include violations that include properties that have operated a business without a certificate of use, violations related to commercial vehicles, and just, again, any illegal business throughout the town. So lastly, we have Councilmember Kozinski's district. We have Sunshine Ranches, and you can see some here throughout this area, mainly due to the larger sizes of the property. They tend to lend themselves to storage and parking of commercial vehicles.
Julio, you've been working in code compliance here how long now?
About 12, 13 years now,
So you've been involved with every one of the properties on the page here?
just about, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's experience. You've seen a lot.
And I believe that's all we have as
Awesome.
far as this presentation, Mayor.
okay. Thank you, appreciate it. Don't go
Thank you,
far.
Julio.
Might want to sit in the front row.
All right. So that's the introduction. I don't know if council, anybody wants to make a statement up front. I wasn't really expecting it, but you're welcome to. Okay. So what we want to do is basically open this up. Eddie, I'd like to, if possible, kind of turn it over to you. I know we've had some conversations, and you've spoken to a lot of the folks out in 208, 2010, so maybe you can kick us off with some
No
of
problem.
your thoughts, okay?
Eddie Flores, 5801 Southwest 210 Terrace. Also, I have property in Rolling Oaks and also at the other, right by the 15200 Tate and Shaw Trail, which is Idaho States. My mother lives on Rolling Oaks. She passed away, but we still own the house. Now, 210 Terrace is very special, all right? 208 and 210 Terrace is very special. We have a lot of people here from that area. For the last, I said, 16 years I've been there, and I rented and then I bought it. We have a problem there because it's not fair to anybody in that area. Nobody wants to buy there and build a house, okay? It's not fair to Mr. Martinez either. It's not fair to the people like Sue that wants to sell, even though he had a business there before. It's not fair to anybody there. We have to make it either whatever you want to call it, like commercial or whatever you want to do. But 210 Terrace and 208 is completely surrounded by commercial. You have the auction, you have Pembroke Pines, you have Bergeron building a 395,000 warehouse on the corner. You got 196, you have another warehouse there. You have the cemetery. They're building, I don't know if you know, but they're building another truck stop across the street from Griffin Road that is taking all the way to either 200 Street on the north side of Griffin Road. You have a lot of things going on there. You have the school. Mothers come in the morning. Jim was there. He had a meeting with all of us. I sent a letter to everybody here, and I've only heard back from 2 people. I know, Steve, that you were on vacation, and you also told me that when you got back, so I excuse you, but only 2 people have gotten back to me, and that was David and Jim, that at least they tried to see what the problem is. I took them around, and they pretty much agree that we need to call 210 and 208 something else, because it's not fair to anybody that lives there. All the houses there, most of them, they run their business out of the house. That I know of, there's only 2 people that don't run their business out of their house, and that's Mr. Martinez. And like I say, Mr. Martinez and I, actually, we were very good friends, and I think that we're still good friends. We never had a problem. There was one person that had a problem with a lot of people there, including Mr. Martinez, and that's what the problem started. But we had a very safe area there, and everybody got along. When there was problems there, we all helped each other, and then something happened, and it went sour. We have everything on 210 and 208 is completely surrounded by commercial. Completely surrounded by commercial. So it's not fair to anybody there. No wife is going to build a house there and want to go stay there. I feel bad for Mrs. Martinez. I really do. I really do, because every morning, that's like a speedway. Mothers taking their kids to school. You got the auction trucks waiting. They park right there, right next to his house, right next to my lot. I have barbecues on my property over there with my grandkids on Sundays, and there's nobody there on Sundays, but I feel bad for Mrs. Martinez because the trucks, they park right in front of their house, in front of my lot. It's a commercial street, and you guys need to vote on it because it's not fair to anybody. I'm not going to be able to sell that property to a residential area. Now with US 27 on the back and people speeding, they speed there. So it's completely surrounded by commercial. So you call it whatever you want, and people can speak out here. And some people, they don't want to talk, and some people hide behind the fence because they're afraid of Julio, honestly, okay? I have people calling me, I'm going to close my gate. And you got people running an air conditioning company out of there, another running something else I'm not going to say because I'm not going to.
That's all right, that's all right.
It's just, they live in fear. It's like a Gestapo or something like that.
All right,
I don't blame Julio because I really enjoy Julio.
All right.
You know, so.
Thank you, thank you.
All right?
All right.
So that's all I got to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eddie. All right, so what I did was I put a 3-minute time limit on this. Eddie exceeded that, but that's okay. That's all right. No, that's all right. Because I want everybody to speak. But what we'll do is, once everybody has spoken, if somebody wants to get back up, we'll let you do it again. But I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak, so there's 3-minute limit. Okay.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
would I be able to say something real quick?
Sure.
All right. Mr. Flores, I met with you and the whole group. There was about 10 people. But I do want to set the record straight for everyone that's here and everyone that's listening. I never said that should be commercial property or industrial whatsoever. I sit and listen to every single resident that was out there. You just simply said that I thought that it was, listen to your point, and that I thought that I agreed with you. I listened to your point, okay? Listen to the residents' points, but in no way, shape, or form did I ever say that I thought that should be changed. That's what we're here for tonight. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, that Jim reflects my point exactly as well.
Okay.
I just don't want to be pinned on that situation. Thank you.
Great, thanks for clarifying.
Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
I've been out, I've been out there with Eddie and some other landowners who are out there, and they've basically given me that same pitch, on something like that. And I can tell you right off the bat, I could never support rezoning that area.
Okay.
So
All right.
It's just, there's undercurrents there that haven't been thought through that I see coming, like, for instance, who's the
Well,
largest?
let's let the public.
Yeah,
speak,
I don't
okay?
wanna get into
I don't
it
want
right
to, let's
now.
get down to the conclusion first, all right? Okay, thanks. All right, others that would like to speak? This could be a short meeting if nobody else gets up.
No, it's not. My name is Noel Hollingsworth, and I'm going to take more than 3 minutes. 10 years ago, we began discussing with the Bergeron Corporation for US 27, and he didn't like what we put down. And it took us 7 years of negotiations back and forth, almost every minute of every meeting with the Bergeron Corporation and lawyers and everybody else to come to the agreement that we have for the US 27 commercial district out there. The only reason that took place was that there was a buffer between the residential 210 and the Bergeron Park of Commerce area. And that's called the cemetery, where no one's really going to complain. We put a lot of rules in place to make sure that light was not bled onto the properties on 210. Noise would not go there. There would be no overnight parking of trucks running, et cetera, et cetera. And we finally worked it out and came to an agreement with everybody. And last year it took place, and he began clearing the property. At that point, during that 7 years, 210 was asked several times if they wanted to come forward and say anything. And we took some of those concerns without them even saying anything, because what would I want as a resident next to me? Or what would I want as a resident 100 yards from me? And we took all of that into consideration, and that's why you have the US 27 commercial district on that little bit of east side, but most of it's on the west side of US 27, where someday that will be developed, and I know that. But what we have also is that those residents on 210, 208, and other sections of town have not taken a proactive effect of their lives on there. I know on 199th, we have a problem at the north end of 199th. And when the person bought the property, within 30 days, he was cited. This has allowed to fester for many years on 210 because we allowed it to go ahead. Could I have one more minute?
Yeah, you can.
We allowed it, the residents there allowed it because we have a live and let live. Now that someone wants to sell and they go, oh my God. Well, the problem is that we have the rules for rural ranches in effect out there. And if no one complained, no one's going to say anything about it. But once the first complaint comes in, your property has to come into compliance, period. And that's the way it's going to remain. That will remain rural ranches. If we don't do that, there is a very large piece of property owned by another municipality which will accept that. And as they tried to get permits from the town some years ago when they first purchased it and cleared the nursery out of there, they will move all of their public utility trucks, et cetera, including waste management and waste recovery and sewage disposal there. That is what's going to happen there if we allow that area to become commercial in any way, shape, or form. It'll allow that municipality to do what it wants on that property. While right now, it's rural ranches, build that one house per 2.5 acres or two acres net. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Please come up. By the way, while we were waiting here, the rainy season started, so congratulations there.
Boy, do we need it.
Good evening.
You pull the mic down a little bit. Good.
Hi, my name is Susu, and I have a property in 210th. A beautiful place over there. I can understand what the gentleman was saying, that at some point everybody was complacent and nobody wanted to do anything because live and let live, that's how it works. Well, that worked at that time. But now it doesn't work because the traffic increase. There is a lot of more stuff happening around us. And what is happening in 210th and 208 is that we are the forgotten piece of land in this city. We are divided in between 27, and then you have us, you have the cemetery, we have us, 208 and 210, and then you have Pembroke Pines. And then we are surrounded, we are separated. It's like nobody, I mean, you go on those streets on the 210th, and it looks like we are back in the 1940s or 1930s. The street is full of holes. I mean, you telling us that we cannot do, that we have to follow your rules and everything, and yet you don't come there and fix the streets. I don't understand it. Why is it that we have to comply with the city rules when you say that you cannot fix the roads because they don't belong to you, belong to us? Now that doesn't make much sense to me. If the streets belong to me, then I have a right to close it up, so no other traffic could go through. Because we have now the problem that you have semi-trucks, you have mothers that don't want to have any, I don't want to say anything against the driving, but my God, they're faster than men. They just go like crazy, and then don't tell them to slow down because they give you the finger, and they keep on going. And I mean, I have 2 of them today, and I was in my nursery talking to my realtor. They just went through the stop sign like that and say, slow down. And I said, well, shit. And it's happening now more often. Before, we didn't have that. We even have horses. I had my horse, which they killed, but then my neighbors across the street, which they moved, but they had a horse, and we walked the horses on the street. There was not that kind of traffic. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden we are inundated by trucks that I don't know where they're coming from, and they're crossing over the bus schools, and it's very easy for most people that don't live there to go and take a look one day and say, oh, we don't have to change this. This is okay. Well, you have to live there. You have to stay there every hour of the day and see what happens. And then you have the smell of the landfill. You have the smell of the asphalt manufacturing in there. I never knew, because I just went and worked, and I did run a landscaping business out of there. Not anymore, I retired. I did run that, and I understand why people that live there will not want me there, because I wouldn't want a landscaping business if I have a house there. I don't want anybody on that street. If I have a house there, I'll be the first one complaining every day about that. So one thing that I would like to ask the city, please, you have to make a decision. And it's easy. You have rules that need to be followed. Implement them. But then you're going to have a war, a World War whatever in this town, because you have tons of homeowners renting their space for landscaping people or plumbers or electricians or whatever. That's how they make their extra money to pay for their mortgage.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but I'll say, please do something, one way
Yep.
or the other, but just make it clear.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Hi, Andrew Green, live in Rolling Oaks.
Can you lift up the mic just a little bit?
Sure.
Thank you.
So wanted to shift the conversation a little bit away from 208, 210. I love that area. In fact, I took the advice of the gentleman here when I first moved out here. I do have ag classification. One of the attractions to the town was that I could establish a nursery. And I went out to that area to consult with the people out there. And so they set me on the path I'm on today. But living in Rolling Oaks, I can say that the map that Julio showed, that shows the violations that have been enforced. It does not show the violators. There are a ton of violations going on and it has only increased in the 10 years that I've been out here. And I see it increasing in pace. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed. And it's not just on 208, 210. It's throughout the town. We need to get a handle on this. I'm tired of the amount of traffic I see on my side road. On one side, we have someone that's distributing gas materials. On the other, we have a gentleman running his engineering firm out of the house. So he has all of his employees. Both businesses have their employees coming, 20-some cars on each property. At the end of another street, gentlemen renting out so that people can park their boats and RVs. Some people living out of the RVs on the property. At all hours, you have people coming and going. I don't think that's what we had in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
No bullets and gunfire here, please.
Right.
Ron Martinez, 5803 Southwest 210 Terrace. I've lived there almost 30 years. Most peaceful place I've ever lived in my life. But of course, Weekly came along, opened the asphalt plant. Bergeron has started his industrial sites just east of us. And now we'll have the Bergeron property just west of us. And you're absolutely correct. We will have a buffer. And as committed to him, to me, he told me personally he will build a wall to prevent the noise from coming to us. For years, I've had no issues with any of my neighbors. Eddie's been there for approximately 8 years. I've known him for the whole time. It was a nursery before. The property next to me on the south side was a nursery. The property across the street from me was a nursery. The property on Sterling, just on the other side of me, east of me, was also a nursery. They're all nurseries. And then what happened? Mortgages rates have gone up, prices have gone up, so people can't afford to just run a landscaping business, a nursery business. So they've sold, and other people have come in and bought it and created landscaping operations where they come in every morning at 6:30 in the morning. The music's playing loudly. They're loading up in their trucks, and they're taking off and going to Plantation, Pembroke Pines, Weston, to maintain those properties. Then they come back at 4:30 in the afternoon, unload all their trucks, all their cars. If they're mulching, they're dumping all the trash, the mulch trash, across the street from my house. And this started 2.5 years ago. I put up with it as long as I could. I don't want to hurt my neighbors. I want to live in peace with my neighbors. But my neighbors have to understand. The town says residential, agricultural. Abide by the town's rules. If you can't abide by the rules, don't buy there. Go buy somewhere else. So finally, after almost 2 years of code compliance hearings back and forth, I've already resolved the problem across the street from my house. So they're gone. They destroyed everything. They destroyed my swale. I had to put boulders to keep them from coming onto my swale, urinating in my bushes, all the noise, the cursing. It just got to a point where it's very difficult to live out there. And like I've told my neighbors, I'll support them. I have leeway in my life. I can support them. But if we're not commercial, we have to abide by residential, agricultural. And I will support them 100%. But if they're not abiding by the rules, I will have to say something about it. Because it's not fair to me and my family and my wife who lives out there. And we don't bother anybody. We close our gate. We don't bother anybody. But the problem is other people want to run something else on these properties. And what does that do? Brings more traffic and more issues. It is true. It is true. We've grown. We've expanded. Pembroke Pines is taking over. It's true. But they're Pembroke Pines. There's nothing we can do about it, right? So we have to live by that and do the best we can. But another big issue for me is that when these landscaping companies buy these properties, then they remove all the trees. So that's helped, that's exceeded the noise level for us also. It doesn't help for a lot of different issues. But we have to abide by the rules and the code of the town. And the town has to make a decision. We're agricultural, residential, or we're going to allow some kind of light-duty mechanical commercial operations. But we can't sit in limbo. We have to abide by the rules and go forward and live as neighbors by the rules. And if you can't live by the rules, don't buy out there. Go somewhere else because it's agricultural, residential. And if you can't live and abide by those rules, do not purchase a property out there. And that's my say.
Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Martinez. That was excellent. Can't top that. This is Alexandra Martinez, 210 Terrace. And I want to thank everybody who spoke here today because there is truth in a little bit of, truth of everybody has said. I think that my biggest regret, we lived there for about 30 years, is that we did let live for too long and we held it in for too long. And because I wanted to let them live, some people took advantage of our kindness and started doing whatever they wanted, and now it's out of control. And it's very difficult for us to go and file a claim against our neighbor. We don't want to do that. When we have, is because we're up to here, and we've really tried to work things out. So please help us not be in this predicament. I know that we want to stay, that it's reactive and all this good stuff, but you're putting so much on us that we have to come and tell you that there are 20 trucks somewhere or that there's an industrial operation going on over here and the landscaping over there. I wish we didn't have to do that. It's difficult for us to go and tell you that somebody's doing something wrong, not abiding by the rules, and we have to live with that person and see them every single day. The other thing I'd like to make a point about is when we make these decisions, please consider the comments from and opinions from the owners of the properties, the people who live there, not the people who lease or run their business from there, because their interests are different from ours. Also, thank you for clarifying, the council member, David and Jim, that you did not decide on, make already a call on what that area should be. My husband and I agree that we abide by the rule, we're law-abiding citizens, and if it's agricultural residential, that's how it should be. If it's going to be something else, then we'll figure out what else we're gonna do. But until that moment comes, we can't live in this limbo situation. It's really gone out of hand. And it does feel sometimes like it's the forgotten land with the potholes and everything that is happening everywhere. So I'm very grateful to all of you here for holding this workshop, for all of us to come together as neighbors and figure out a good solution for everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Debbie Green, 199th Avenue. I just gonna share, I think it's just important that the town, I know it's hard, but we need to enforce what's allowed in the rural residential areas. I mean, that's what, rural residential, agricultural, whatever it is, that they need to be enforced. Just to share a story, I mean, I'm on 199th. We have 36 homes. And we've got some issues on the end by Griffin Road. The house across the street from me, and I'm at where the gate is, at the end, the house across the street from me was for sale. I didn't really pay attention. I went and looked at the Zillow, just looked at the pictures, and never really looked at the listing. And then I went to, because I saw the price had dropped, and then I actually went and read the listing. So the listing said, in addition to all the stuff at the house, great investment opportunity. You can park cars there. You can rent out part of the house. And I forget what the third thing was. I can't think of it now. But it was also not permissible in the town. So already what's happening on one end of the street, and now thinking, how does this happen? So our neighbor, and he was out of town, and I said to Mike, do you think that Daniel, that he even knows? So I said, but you know what, I can just call the realtor, her number's there. So I called, very respectful. I didn't say I was a neighbor across the street. I just said I was calling about the listing on 199 and just shared with her those things that were not permissible in the town. And she's like, but I've been all through the town and I see these things going on everywhere. I'm like, well, they're not permissible in the town. And just, she mentioned the end of the street. I'm like, well, I believe the person at the end of the street is paying largest amount in code enforcements daily. So I just said, but I encourage you to call town hall and ask them if this is allowable. And so she told me she would, and she said if it wasn't, she was going to take it down. By Tuesday, it was taken down. But at the same time, if this is, you don't want to say anything, but you don't want to wait till someone's now bought that house with the intention of parking cars there and parking boats there and doing whatever else. And if we keep allowing people to keep encroaching, how long does it take till no longer is 199th a residential street? Or, many of these are even like out west. It didn't start out that way. And sadly, people today are not as considerate, I don't believe, as they were 30 years ago, where people did treat your neighbors how you wanted to be treated. I think now people are more, it's all about them some of the times. But I just think it's just important that we enforce what's allowable. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening, Joanne Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. This is another case of, it started out as, I love this town, now change it for me. We have a problem on 199th that the council is well aware of. And like Debbie Green said, if we don't take care of that, 199th will turn into that type of an area, which 45 years ago when we moved in, we never planned on that. What's going on next to me is the last thing I thought that would happen. The people on 210 and 28 have a serious problem. On 199th, when this gentleman bought this property and immediately started doing what he's doing, which is illegal, excuse me, 18 residents on 199th called code and complained. 18 residents on their own took the initiative to start this, so hopefully we won't have to live with this for the rest of our lives. People on 210 were trying to be nice and waited, and we all want to be nice, but there comes a point where you cannot any longer tolerate what's going on. I feel these people have had that, others have had that, and I will tell you this, if you allow the commercial and you allow that to go on 210, 28, because they happen to be next to Pembroke Pines, which we have no control over, because we have other people there that think they can get away with things, if you allow that, what is going to happen? 210 becomes commercial. 208 becomes commercial. 199th, you mess up our properties. Already there is a problem with people calling about the sale of properties because of what's on the corner. He belongs in Medley, not here. So this question of changing the code to meet the commercialism, and it's actually, I don't even know if you'd call it commercialism. It seems like it's just whatever they're doing, and they're getting away with it. They are. No more. Say no more. Keep it what it is. It's a residential agricultural area. It needs to be kept that, or you're going to find that the next street down 199th loses it. Then your street, Steve, loses it. 198th will lose it because all of it, it'll just go all the way down. Sunshine Ranches will lose it. We've got these popping up all through the town. It's got to be stopped. You were voted in to preserve our rural lifestyle. We appreciate that. We want that. Can I have one more minute?
You do.
And we want that. We do not want what's going on. I have a video that my neighbor across the street sent to my phone that shows what was going on that property on 199th. He's woken up in the middle of the night. It just happens that his camera caught all of this. And it's disgusting. It is exactly what that, 3:30 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. He's been before code. Actually, he showed up for code finally where he hadn't shown up before. So this cannot be tolerated. You cannot change the zoning to suit the illegal activities. You keep the zoning that we have. You protect the residents that have been there and are coming there. You don't change the zoning to suit the illegal activity. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Good evening.
Cardozo, 188th. You mind I play a little sound bite out of a video I took so you guys get a good feel of.
So long as it's not, as long as it's G-rated.
Yeah, it is. It is. I just want to share with so you get a good grasp of what I'm going to be talking about.
Go ahead.
Let me see if it comes up. So, and it's worse than that. I try to get it to the right spot on the video, but it didn't play. But for months and months, and I'm not going to, by the way, just to not embarrass anybody and not call in, I'm not going to mention addresses or who the property owner is or nothing like that.
Good.
But I think that the town needs to put a little more bite into code enforcement, especially when you have a property owner who's gone through stuff that I've gone through with a property owner who just has no respect for his neighbors at all, putting in heavy-duty equipment, putting over 1,000 gallons of capacity of fuel, basically having 7, 8 employees in their backyard making all type of noises, fixing heavy equipment, running heavy equipment, cursing, yelling, fighting, all type of things like this, when it's not even allowed. I reported it for months and months and months and months, and actually nothing ever came about. It just kept on just kept on getting worse. So I would sort of recommend that maybe something could be done where code enforcement of the town gets a little more serious with folks that are taking advantage of the place we live, and hopefully we could all sort of live and let live, but to a certain, limitation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, for 45 years, I've been in every industrial type of business you can think of, in and out, in and out, in and out. I know the rules. I know what the rules are in Doral, Dade County, Homestead, every place else. They're all here because they can't be there. Hialeah is stricter than Southwest Ranches on what Carlos was just alluding to. You can't haul and handle the thousands of gallons of fuel it takes to run all this equipment. How many of these vehicles are running on red fuel? That's a $10,000 fine. All you got to do is look in the fuel tank, or you put a strip in there and it turns the color. We just can't do this. We live off drinking water from our wells. And this idiot is, by the way, we share the same violator he was talking about. Okay? I know what the guy's up to. He's some type of an engineering contractor. He's got digging equipment. He's got excavators. He's got all that kind of stuff, fuel tanks, just like he said. I just can't imagine. Every morning I see fuel trucks going down 188th Avenue. They're not out there to deliver 10 or 15 gallons. How far are they going to drive to deliver that to the profit margin you make on fuel? They got to be several hundred gallons. Where's the containment vessels? Anywhere. We have a fire department that could do that kind of stuff. The fire department in Dade County is all over that kind of stuff. It would be real simple. I mean, larger tank, there's a certain amount of containment you have to have for the tank. It would be real simple. But we don't even try to do that. We don't even try to have a work area where they're mandated to have an asphalt. But the fact is, allowing that to happen would be contradictory to what you're trying to establish. You still don't want the guy there. You don't want a guy going down to Miami every morning. When I used to travel every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I even passed the mayor a couple of times on I-75, you got landscape guys doing the shopping centers down there because they can operate so much cheaper here under a shade tree. They don't even have shade trees down there where they have industrial spots. It's all, you sweat your butt off. Or you build a building over what you have to do, and then when you do that, you got to comply with the building code. I don't know what kind of building code they got on these barn structures, but I don't think they're too bad. That's not the thing. The thing is the fuel, the kind of activity. What kind of sewage do they got? Do they just got a barrel in the ground? I can tell you where there's places that have that in Dade County, because I was there when they were doing these things. Container yards, that sort of thing. They don't have septic systems. They got a barrel. So I got that at my hunting camp, but it's 22 square miles, for God's sakes. How am I going to endanger anybody, right? But anyway, so much for that. You guys got to enforce the rules. There's no other way around it.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
I am Matt Haldeman. I also live on 188th. So I've lived here for, it's a little bit over 5 years now, believe it or not. My last duty station was here. And I moved from a beautiful home in Maryland on 1.5 acres that backed up to 20,000 acres of state land. And then by word of mouth, everyone told me that Weston was the best place to live because of schools. And I moved there, and all I did was search Zillow before my business now for a home in Southwest Ranches to get back the closest what I lived in before I moved down here. And mainly the reason was, well, I was going stir crazy for a year, but is to raise my kids here and have them have the childhood that I did in Delaware, living up in farmland and agricultural and being free. And what free to me is for my kids to be able to have use of the entire town. And what I see in the last 5 years since I've been here is parts of town being taken away from my kids. And I do not like that. Was it 196 being designated as wetlands where all of our kids ride four-wheelers for credits so you can develop stuff elsewhere? That was taken away from our kids, their experiences. Now 210, 208 becoming industrial is being taken away from our kids, all right? The proposal of widening the road, the single road, from where I live out west is taking away from land that my kids can ride their four-wheelers and everyone else. Why? So more traffic can come through our town. That doesn't help us. Maybe it saves 5 minutes when the school's let out and everything. That's all it'll do, but it'll take away thousands of acres, not thousands.
I mean, you're talking about Sheridan, is that what you're talking about?
Griffin,
Oh,
widening that.
Griffin, okay.
And my point is changing or rezoning, it changes the rural lifestyle that I moved in here for and why I want to stay here. And the only reason why I live in South Florida is because I live in Southwest Ranches. I wouldn't live anywhere else in here. And if this changes, we're out of here. But I just see it as that's my point of view, is coming from a dad and the way that I grew up, and it's slowly not slowly, it's happened pretty quick in the last 5 years I've been here, the changes. And I'm afraid that it's going to continue down that path. And that's what my concern is. How can we keep the town, the whole entire town, to be able for our kids to use it as a whole, everyone. That's just the point that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Matt. Anyone else? Go for it, another round. But we are going to cut it off at two rounds, okay? I think that's plenty of time. No, two.
Maybe three. Anyway, what you've heard tonight is very simply, keep us rural. The concrete stops here. All of those things that 25 years ago we said we were going to do, and this council has said we also have live and let live. Well, there's problems when people who don't believe in live and let live move into town and say, me, 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 to heck with you. That is what we're having here. And all of these little red marks that you see on all of these different properties, these are just the ones that have become mainly so egregious that the people finally can't take any more of it. You have others that are just beginning. Now, on 199th, it so happened that the gentleman bought in August. In September, he got cited because on 199th, everyone said, we're not going to put up with it. It's going to happen right now. When that gentleman moved in, people stopped and welcomed him to the neighborhood. He said, I am going to move in with my family. One of the people on the block even brought him a cake. Welcome. 30 days later, let's burn him out because of the egregious manner in which he was taking care of it. The first 3 code enforcement hearings that he had, he didn't show up. He showed up for the 4th one, but anyway, one of the problems is that it takes so long for code enforcement to actually bite down and take effect. That is one of the things. This has been going on 199th since September, the middle of September. It still is not resolved. His next code enforcement hearing will be in July. That is almost an entire year so far of aggressive enforcement by the people on 199th. Now, we've got the problems also of those that I don't want to bother my neighbor. I don't want to get bad feelings with my neighbors. And that's one of the problems that we have. I don't know if we need to go to proactive code enforcement on this or not. And that's sort of like a word that sort of burns in the back of my throat.
Mm-hmm.
And we only have 5 things that we are code enforcement proactive on right now.
Let's wrap it up.
But it seems the problem needs to be looked at in depth. One is, do we need to be proactive? And 2, how do we shorten the distance between the initial problem of someone stepping forward and saying, this is a code enforcement problem, and Julio goes out and cites them, to final resolution. Gary knows about final resolution because of when they brought that one person to here and showed us the films of everything of them early in the morning and everything out there in Rolling Oaks. Just as resolved, I think, this month. I think that's correct.
No, it was several years ago, but it took time.
It still wasn't resolved completely until, I think, just recently.
Anyway, go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to come back up? All right. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for being respectful when you were speaking. I appreciate that greatly. I think this was a good discussion. I do have some comments to make. I don't know if any of the rest of the council would like to make some comments.
Just a quick one.
Okay.
Eddie, I don't know if I ever got an email from you, because you say you sent it to all of us. Hopefully you put 2 N's on it, on Hartman. Biggest.
All right, don't, just say you said it.
Just real quick. I mean, if you would have called me, I would have spoken to you, I would have come out, I would have had the conversation with you. So if I would have saw an email from you, I would have picked up the phone, as I've done in the past. So anyway, that's.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that's clear.
All right. Awesome. Once again, thank you all for coming out. I think that, obviously we've heard a lot tonight. I'm going to speak for myself. I'll just speak for myself, and I'll say this, that Southwest Ranches is a unique jewel that is in South Florida. Pretty much we all came out here for the same reason, for that lifestyle, similar to what Matt was talking about. And everybody up here, including myself, we made the vow to this community that we would preserve that. And this is one of those issues where we have the opportunity to show that we were serious when we said that. I understand this is tough. I understand if I had a business out there that this would be, I would be fighting to keep it. But the reality is that the rules were there before any of those businesses opened up. And the reality is that for a larger price, I'm sure, it's going to cost more, but there are other places that you can go that do allow it. And are there as many as there used to be? Nope, but they are out there, but it's going to cost. But the reality is that for the folks that are here, that are residential, that came here for a rural lifestyle, I believe it's our obligation as a council to preserve that. And we have been operating under the, guise is not the right word, but kind of the modus operandi of saying live and let live. We don't want to be putting a hammer to anybody. We want people to be respectful of one another and to treat one another well. And I think it says a lot that even folks that are on different sides of the issue here showed great respect and friendship for one another tonight. And I don't want to lose that. And I don't want that point to be lost. But it's true that, yeah, we technically we could change the zoning out there, but then it would just move the problem another block or two over. It wouldn't make the problem go away. It would just move it closer and closer to the center of the town. And so we have to draw a line somewhere, and we've drawn that line. The line was drawn many, many years ago. And I think that what has been pointed out to me is that we need to, as a council, we need to talk a little bit about enforcement. I do think that there is an element where, there's still an element in my mind where I think there's maybe room for some sort of a time frame, 12 months or something, for people to get their things together and come up with a plan. But I think overall, the day is coming, and I hate to say it, but it's true. I don't hate to say it. It is what it is. I know it'll hurt some folks, but I think the day is coming when we're going to have to really enforce out there that this is a residential agricultural area. That's what it is. That's the way it's zoned. That's the way it's always been, and that's the way it should be. And that's the way we're going to have to make it again. It's going to be painful, but I think from my perspective, that's what it needs to be, and that's the direction we're going to need to go. So I'll leave it there for myself. I don't know if anybody else wants to say something. Yes or no, it's fine.
I understand your comments, and I don't disagree, but you're saying out there, I'm assuming that if we're going to enforce it in one area, we'd really be...
Great point.
We'd have to comply across town.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
Yeah, Mayor, if I
Yeah.
may, when I started my little
Yeah.
crusade, tirade, whatever tantrum, whatever you want to call it, 6 months ago, I was going from Flamingo to 27. It wasn't just, 210 wasn't even on the radar.
Yep.
I was looking at what was happening in Rolling Oaks. I was looking at what was happening in Green Meadows, Sunshine Ranches, out west in Country Estates. I'm getting phone calls. I'll give you a for instance that occurred last week. We have a property that down the street from me. The owners are absentee. They rented out the house, and then they rented out the back acre to 6 landscapers.
Yeah.
On my street. Okay. The neighbors called me
Sure.
to call code,
Sure.
and I said, no, you guys got to call code.
Yeah. Good.
And of course, that ran right into a stone wall, So they're operating, and it's a problem, and that's going on all over the town. That is, and I see it everywhere, and people don't want to be, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't want to call in on their neighbors, or they don't want to be the bad guy. They'd rather us be the bad guy, or they're no bad guy at all. Kind of thing. And that's one part of the problem. That's
It
a
is.
large part of the problem.
It is a big part of the problem. I agree with you. And so I think there's multiple decisions to be made here. And I think it was clear, decision one, whether this is going to be deemed legal or not. I think I'm guessing we're pretty solid on that. But you bring up another point, as Bob did. Number one, this is a town-wide issue, and second of all, we just passed a change to our charter that does make it very difficult to make something else proactive, but we need to talk about whether this is going to be one of those things. So I think that's a decision that needs to be looked at. I think that we do need an element of respect for the people that are in this situation, for good or for bad. And I'm talking about some of the business owners where they get notice and there's an element of time for them to find a place to go somewhere else. I know, Rick from Lemon Lime, when it became clear, that's exactly what he did. He found another spot. It's costing him more, but he moved his business and he's operating fine in a place that's legal and he can do his business. So I think it makes sense for us if we were to, or at least one of the things we should look at, is
I
having
think it-
some element of a time for people to make that transition, because we want it to be as smooth and as painless as it can possibly be, although it's going to be painful.
Yeah, I think what predicates that is what type of business is being run, is
Good point.
being run.
Good
You know,
point.
landscaping business, they can move overnight.
Well, they got to find a spot, right? And that's not easy. So
No, I
once
understand.
everything is lined up,
But
they can move overnight.
But they have their own little communication system.
It's not going to be easy. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say anybody can move overnight. Moving your business, no matter what the business, is a difficult task.
I'll back off on the overnight. I'll give it 2 weeks, okay?
Yeah, I don't,
That goes to the point about we're not just going to enforce this out west, because what I could see happening,
into the mic.
sorry, is the folks that are running their businesses out there now, what's to stop them from moving to Roca? What's to stop them from moving
Yeah.
down to the 180s, over to Sunshine Ranches? That's not our goal here, to move these businesses around. It's,
In town.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, good.
You know, and if we have businesses that are not easily movable, you know, we give them 6 months or something like that,
Yeah.
you know? But I mean, we put a definite time period. I mean, look at, you know, Proscapes. That took,
Years.
it's on 9 years.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Finding a location is not something you can do overnight.
No.
Yeah.
It's not, it's going to take time. It's going to take, you know, I mean, anyway, we can talk about that. That's a
Yeah.
detail we can talk about. David, I see your hand up.
Maybe what I'm going to say, maybe just a tiny bit unpopular, but I'm going to say it. A lot of the source of these problems is sitting in the governor's mansion when he changed the rules on anonymous code enforcement complaints. That hit every one of us. And I think my belief is once he's out of office, we can get our lobbyist in line and remove this and allow back to anonymous code enforcement compliance. This is a personal matter with him. And I mean, okay, he screws us with this.
All right, David, we don't- David.
With, let me finish, with cutting off our funding requests. So this is reality, folks. It wasn't caused by us. It was caused by the governor. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? I hate to finish on that comment, but
I
maybe we will.
mean, we're obviously going to discuss this at future meetings.
Right.
You know, after.
Right, so this was
After
a-
we've had time to digest everything.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see if there was anything out there that, you know, I was unaware of, if just kind of get a sense on it. But frankly, this kind of reinforced what I think, I certainly expected. But I want to make sure that we do the right way. But at the end of the day, what we're here for is to protect this town and the rural lifestyle. It starts and ends right there. And so that's what we're about. So, any other final comments? All right, seeing none, I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank you for being bold enough to stand in front of the microphone and express your thoughts and your views. And the council will obviously continue to discuss this, and we'll probably, in the not-too-distant future, come up with some action items that we'll also bring forth. So, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mayor.
Motion to adjourn.